There is a date on your calendar that decides whether an insurance company has to say yes to you or is allowed to ask about your health first. Almost nobody mails you a reminder about it. A man wrote in this month describing exactly that. He tried a Medicare Advantage plan when he first signed up, decided after a year that he wanted to go back to original Medicare with a supplement, and applied in month 14. The insurer was allowed to ask about his health, and the answer was no. That is not a story about a bad company. It is a story about a calendar. Federal law lists the situations where a Medigap insurer must take you, no matter what your medical chart says, and every one of those situations comes with a clock. When the clock runs out, the protection ends, and in most states, the health questions begin. So today we are going to do something a little different in this lab. Instead of running numbers on money, we are going to run numbers on time, and then put a dollar figure on what the time is worth. 3 windows, 1 deadline that surprises people, and a 4-step check you can finish in about 10 minutes with a calendar and 1 old envelope. I am Susan Mitchell, and this is the Retirement Lab. Let me start with the vocabulary, because 2 phrases do all the work here. The first is guaranteed issue. Guaranteed issue means the insurance company must sell you the policy, cannot refuse you, and cannot charge you more because of your health history. The second is medical underwriting. Underwriting means the company is allowed to look at your health and is allowed to say no, or to say yes at a higher price. Guaranteed issue and underwriting are 2 doors into the same building, and which door you walk through depends entirely on where you are standing on the calendar. Here is the first window, and it is the strongest one you will ever get. Your Medigap open enrollment period lasts 6 months. It begins in the first month when 2 things are true. At the same time, you are 65 or older, and you are enrolled in Medicare Part B. Notice that both conditions have to be true. If you turned 65 while you were still working and stayed on an employer plan without taking Part B, your 6 months has not started yet. It will start when Part B starts. During those 6 months, no company can ask you a single health question. Not about the stent, not about the diabetes, not about the year you spent in treatment. You get the same price as the healthiest person your age and your zip code. That is a genuinely valuable thing, and it arrives once in your life. Now the second window, and this is the one from the letter I read at the top. It is called a trial right, and it lasts 12 months. It applies when the very first Medicare choice you ever made was a Medicare Advantage plan, at the moment you became eligible at 65. Congress recognized that a first choice made under pressure might turn out to be the wrong one, so it built in a trial period. For those first 12 months, you can leave the Advantage plan, return to original Medicare, and buy a Medigap policy with guaranteed issue. No health questions. There is a second version of the same right, and it catches fewer people, but it is worth knowing. If you already had a Medigap policy, dropped it to try a Medicare Advantage plan for the first time, and you decide within 12 months that you want to go back, you have the right to return to your old policy if that company still sells it. Same clock, slightly different destination. What matters in both versions is the number 12, not 15, not 18, not the end of the following open enrollment. 12 months from when the coverage started. The man in the letter was in month 14, which is why the company was allowed to ask about his health at all. The third window is 63 days, and it is the one that covers life happening to you. Most of the other guaranteed issue situations in federal law share the same length. You get 63 days from the day your old coverage ends. Your Medicare Advantage plan pulls out of your county for next year, and that plan ends. You move outside the plan's service area. The retiree coverage from a former employer, the one that has been paying secondary all these years, comes to an end. In each of those cases, the coverage went away through no fault of yours, so the law gives you a protected runway to land on a Medigap policy. One practical detail that saves people a great deal of stress: you can usually apply early. In most of these situations, the application can go in starting 60 days before the old coverage ends, and the right continues for 63 days after. That means you are not required to spend a single day uninsured while you wait for an approval letter. Before we leave the windows, I want to clear up the misunderstanding I hear more than any other, because it costs people real money every autumn. The Medicare open enrollment season that runs from the middle of October through early December is not a guaranteed issue window for supplements. It is a window for changing Advantage plans and drug plans. You can switch from one Advantage plan to another during those weeks with nobody asking about your health, and that freedom leads people to assume the same freedom applies to a supplement. It does not. Moving from an Advantage plan to a Medigap policy in December, outside one of the 3 windows we just walked through, still goes through underwriting in most states. The same goes for one more thing. People assume creates a right. Switching from one Advantage plan to a different Advantage plan does not start a new trial right. The trial clock counts from your first Advantage enrollment, not from the most recent one. So if you changed plans twice, the 12 months you care about started at the beginning of the first one. So those are the 3 windows: 6 months, 12 months, 63 days. Now let us talk about what actually happens on the other side of them, because this is where people are genuinely surprised. Outside a guaranteed issue window, in most states, the company may underwrite. In practice, that means a health questionnaire, sometimes a prescription database check, sometimes a phone interview. Conditions that get attention are the ones you would expect: recent cancer treatment, congestive heart failure, an organ transplant, kidney disease, a recent stroke. The second story I read this month was about a woman who had been cancer-free for 4 years and was told the company wanted 1 more year before it would consider her. She was not turned away because she is sick. She was turned away because she applied on the wrong side of the calendar. There is one more piece of fine print worth carrying with you. If you buy a Medigap policy outside a guaranteed issue window and you did not have continuous coverage before it, the company can impose a waiting period for a condition you already have, and that waiting period can run as long as 6 months. So the calendar does not only decide whether you get in, it can also decide when your coverage actually starts working. Now let us put money on it, because a rule without a number is just a warning, and this channel does not deal in warnings. Suppose you miss the window, you are turned down for a supplement, and you stay on your Medicare Advantage plan. In a normal year, that is often a comfortable place to be. The plan premium may be 0, and the extra benefits are real. The question is, what happens in a bad year? Because a bad year is exactly the year you were hoping to have a supplement for. In 2026, a Medicare Advantage plan may not set its in-network out-of-pocket limit higher than $9,250, and the combined in- and out-of-network limit may not go above $13,900. Those are ceilings, not typical figures, and I want to be careful here because the average matters more than the maximum. Across everyone enrolled in 2026, the average in-network limit is closer to $5,400. Also keep in mind that those limits cover Part A and Part B services only. Prescription spending sits under a separate Part D cap of $2,100. Now the other side. On original Medicare with a Plan G supplement, your bad year looks like this. The Part B deductible in 2026 is $283, and after that the supplement picks up the coinsurance. Your premium is the real cost, and it varies enormously by state and by age, so let me use $170 a month purely as an illustration. That is $2,040 a year, plus the $283 deductible, for a total near $2,323. So in the worst kind of year, against a plan sitting at the legal ceiling, the difference runs to about $6,900. Against a more typical plan limit of $5,400, the difference is closer to $3,100. That is the real span. somewhere between $3,000 and $7,000 in one difficult year, in exchange for roughly $2,000 of premium every year, difficult or not. I want to be honest about the other direction too, because I would rather you make a good decision than an anxious one. In a healthy year, the person on the Advantage plan usually comes out ahead. They did not pay that $2,000. Over 10 quiet years, that is $20,000 they kept. This is not a story about one product being right and the other being wrong. It is a story about which door you are still allowed to choose and for how long. The window is the asset. Once it closes, the choice stops being yours and starts belonging to an underwriter. There is one important exception, and it depends on where you live. A handful of states require guaranteed issue outside the federal windows. New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Maine all give residents protections that go beyond the federal rules, in some cases year-round. State law can change, so please confirm your own state rather than taking my word for it a year from now. Here is the 4-step check I promised, and it really does take about 10 minutes. Step 1. Find the month your Part B started. It is printed on your red, white, and blue Medicare card. Write that month down, count 6 months forward, and now you know whether your once-in-a-lifetime window is open, closed, or has not begun yet. Step 2. If your very first Medicare choice was an Advantage plan, write down the month that plan started and count 12 months forward. Put that date on the wall calendar in the kitchen, not in a drawer. That is the date after which the questions begin, and month 14 arrives faster than anyone expects. Step 3. If anything is ending this year, a plan leaving your county, a move, an employer plan winding down, write down the last day of that coverage and count 63 days forward. Then count 60 days backward, because that is when you may already be allowed to apply. Step 4. If all 3 windows are closed, do not just accept it quietly. Call a supplement carrier in your state and ask 2 specific questions: whether your state has additional guaranteed issue rules and what their underwriting look-back period is for your particular condition. Companies differ, and one company's 2-year look-back is another company's 5. That single phone call is worth more than an afternoon of reading. Let me put one household on this, the way we usually do. A retired postal worker in Ohio chose an Advantage plan at 65 because his neighbor liked hers. 11 months in, his cardiologist recommended a specialist 2 counties over who was not in the network. He had 1 month of trial right left and did not know the right existed. Had he applied that month, a supplement had to take him at the standard price. He found out about it in month 16 instead, after a health questionnaire came back with a decline. His plan was not a bad plan. He simply lost a choice he did not know he was holding, and nothing about his health changed in those 5 months. That is the whole point of this episode. The health did not change, the date did. So here is the reframe I would like you to keep. Money questions in retirement usually have a right answer you can calculate. This one does not work that way, because the calculation only stays open while a window is open. Your job is not to predict your health. Your job is to know which window you are standing in and how many days are left in it, and to make the decision while the decision is still yours. If you are inside one of these windows right now, or if you have been through underwriting and want to tell people how it actually went, put it in the comments. Real experiences from real households are worth more than any summary of the rules, and somebody reading this week is going to need exactly your story. I am Susan Mitchell. Run your numbers. Know you're on track.